Within a bleak and dismal swamp, hidden beneath its murky waters, lies the headquarters of the most sinister villains of all time, the Legion of Doom.
Hello, everyone. Today is a huge treat. This is definitely a bucket list interview for me. You're one of the four people on my Mount Rushmore of comic book writers I've always wanted to interview. So this is a treat, guys. I have the legendary Mark Waid to talk about Superman, Justice League Unlimited, his new history of the DC universe. Mark, it's a pleasure to get to talk to you today.
Same here. My pleasure. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So first, one of my favorite stories that I've heard you talk about when I got to see a panel of yours is the impact that Richard Donner's Superman film had on you, which I think before we get into any more of the interview, I think that's a really good context to give our audience about what
Sure.
that film meant to you.
I'm happy to. I was a teenager when the first movie came out. I liked a lot of things when I was a kid. I liked comics. I liked Superman, but I liked magic tricks, and I liked you know uh, eh, any number of things. So it wasn't that I was a Superman aficionado per se going in that movie, but I was in a dark place. I was in a really dark place in my life. My parents had split up. Nobody knew what they were doing. Uh, I kind of fell between the cracks a lot. I was a couple of years ahead in school, and so I didn't really have any friends or peer group. I was just a runty little kid, um, and I didn't have any friends. It was a really dark time. I mean, don't oversell it, but I mean, it was really a very dark time in my life, and I didn't know whether anybody really cared if I lived or died. Really felt that way. And I went to see Superman the movie, and I sat through it twice in a row. And I came out of that movie. I mean, I went in that movie thinking nobody cared about me. I came out of that movie knowing that whatever the rest of my life was going to have to be, it was going to have to do with Superman. And it took me a long time to figure out exactly what was going on there. But really, it's pretty obvious in retrospect. I mean, like I'm not crazy. I know he's not a real character, but still, the fact that Superman cares about everybody touched me, really got to me at a very crucial turning point in my life and gave me something to believe in and gave me something bright and vibrant to hang on to. And that you can make a solid case that Superman literally saved my life. And so
Yeah.
that is why he will always be a part of my life.
That's amazing. So when you get to write Birthright and it's your definitive take on Superman's origin story, updated for the time period it came out in, what was most important to you? Like, did you feel this pressure? Like now's your chance to try to create something that maybe could potentially save someone's life someday.
Boy, I didn't think of it that way. I mean, if I thought about it that way, I'd still be sitting behind the keyboard of issue one. I would have been, but I was mindful of the fact that this was a chance to reinvent's a strong word, but reinterpret Superman for the 21st century. I think that something that struck me, I remember when I was writing this book, was I was listening to NPR. And I was listening to a slice of life, story about this little town in, I want to say, Oregon, I forget where it's a little small town where there's a guy in the town who dresses as Superman every day. And well, like buying groceries or going to the bar, whatever, he's just dressed as Superman. And it had to do with the fact that his wife was killed in a horrible car accident not long before then. So it gave him something to hold on to. So he wasn't insane. He was his way of coping. But what really struck me about that story was that the reporter's talking about people seeing him around town, and he goes into the bar and people wave at him. And it's always the older people because the younger people don't really understand the impact of Superman. And I realized in that moment, oh my God, they're not wrong. This character is in desperate danger in the 21st century of becoming like Woody Woodpecker or Andy
Mm,
Panda or Betty Boop or a character that really doesn't have much cultural significance anymore. We keep writing him at that point like he's still stuck in 1965, or even stuck in the late 90s, but it's still
yeah.
stuck in an era where suburbia was white picket fences was considered to be a good thing, and the American dream, before kids had to go through metal detectors to get through school, before the reality, he just didn't live in the world that we live in,
Yeah.
right? The post 9/11 world. So reinterpret that gave me the permission to sort of get in there and from the ground up ask just the most fundamental questions that we've never really asked, which is, why does he do this? What motivates him other than the fact that he's a superhero? Why does he wear a costume? Why does he have a secret identity? Answering all of these questions in a way that approaches the material with optimism and hope rather than cynicism, and establishing that real foundation of optimism for the character. That was all I was. That was all I wanted to do.
Just that
Just
little
that.
thing, right?
Exactly. But that was the goal, and to a large degree, I think I succeeded. I think that one of the best things that happens to me at conventions, and it happens to me every time, and it always makes me feel great, is someone will come up to me with a copy of Superman Birthright and say something to the effect of, I didn't really like Superman until somebody made me read this, and now I totally get Superman. Wow, that is
Yeah.
exactly what I was trying to do.
I also have this strong belief that Superman is like one of the most important characters in all of fiction. So a lot of my channel is designed more at new readers because I myself am a newer reader. So
Mhm.
I always joke that if I do my job right, you'll outgrow my channel pretty quickly and
Ah,
you'll find deeper channels, but I'll get you
sure,
started. I'm your
sure.
good 101 entry class. And I've done a lot of videos on what I think are good Superman stories to get started. And I like to ask people, what is your favorite? And I feel like a lot I've so many people comment that Birthright is their favorite, and I know
That's
we just
nice.
got the compact comic of it. I
Hmm.
know we'll get an absolute of it someday, hopefully. I feel like it
Yep.
definitely deserves that. So and I think what was really interesting is um the last days of Lex Luthor felt almost like a spiritual sequel to a sense, or like it took place in that same, I guess, your own same personal continuity of the character,
Yeah,
to me
it
to a
was pretty.
degree.
It was very much in that same sort of head canon of my own, that
Yeah.
they were different ends of the spectrum, beginnings of Superman and sort of the ends of the Lex Luthor Superman rivalry. I mean, there are certain cracks that you have to spackle over in order to make sure that but both stories written 25 years apart are seamless, and they're not real. There's certain details that I changed for the Lex Luthor story in terms of their upbringing as kids,
Mhm.
but it's still very much my vision of who Superman and Luthor are. Yeah.
So I guess my next question is, why do you think it's important in your personal continuity and headcanon that they knew each other in Smallville together? And then my next question is, do you think Lex was always fated to be who he was, or would things have been different if Clark had been able to confide in him the secret?
I do think things would have been different for Clark, or rather for Luthor. I don't think as different as Clark thinks they would have been.
Yeah.
I think that there's a moment when Clark admits in
Mhm.
the last days of Lex Luthor, that he feels a great responsibility for having made some mistakes, and therefore Luthor becomes who he becomes, and Luthor just bursts out laughing like, this is,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
how.
I like how he calls him arrogant kind of in that moment, almost like,
Yeah,
which is like, let's the pot calling the kettle black, right? Like
right. Look, I
most,
got everything. Yeah, besides, I got everything I wanted out of life.
yeah.
Except killing you. That's it. Yeah. Who are you to have to presume that you could control my life that way? But
Yeah.
it's certainly within. I mean, Superman didn't walk around with the guilt of it hanging over his head every single day, but there was a little bit of regret in
Yeah.
Superman that perhaps if he'd done something a little differently, that Luthor might have turned out differently. That's perfectly in character of Superman.
Yeah.
It's important to me in my head canon. I like a world. I like the version of Lex and Superman that knew each other
Mhm.
as kids for a couple of reasons. One is that I just find it more poignant that they end up being such bitter enemies in the long term. I also think that in any heroic journey, that tragedy and overcoming tragedy should be a part of that hero's journey. That's just Joseph Campbell 101.
Yep.
And there's a world in which, or there's a version of Superman in which there's just no tragedy at all. If Krypton is a terrible place full of mean people, and icy, cold place that we don't care whether it lived or died, and Ma and Pa Kent never die, and Lex Luthor doesn't. There's no conflict with Lex early. Then there is no real tragedy to Superman's life. I like the idea that Superman had Luthor as a best friend and lost him at a young age because of something he perceives he did.
Yeah.
And that, I think, makes Superman a richer and deeper character.
Yeah. That's awesome. That Last Days of Lex Luthor just came out the because I'm more of the collected edition side of YouTube. So I remember the first single issue came out felt like forever ago,
It's like
and
Jurassic era. I know. I
it
know.
was I no 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 for me it was actually I remember when I read it because me and my best friend both got our single issue of it when it came out, and it was my bachelor party, and we read it while we waited for other people to arrive, and then I felt like I felt like it took a while for the other issues to come out, but
Oh,
getting to read it all collected gave me a
yeah.
great experience with it.
It was 8 years between the time I wrote page one, panel one, and the
Wow.
time that last issue came out. So I don't know why we put it on the schedule with issue one so early when we knew issue two was not going to be out for a while, but that's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
So all I care is that the collected edition as of this
Yep.
week is finally out and in stores. And I honestly I'm not just saying this because it's on sale now. This is not a promotional thing I'm saying. I'm saying this sincerely. I think it may be the best thing I've ever written. I think.
Yeah. And if we do want to promote it, I am the marketing manager of Organic Price Books, so you can pick it up there. And maybe, you know what? We'll do a giveaway for a copy today. We'll do a giveaway of that. We'll do a giveaway of Absolute Kingdom Come.
Fair enough.
I love
Okay.
giving away I love giving away books,
Great.
man, because I'm not the owner, right? I'm the marketing guy. I got to be the fun one, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So that'll be fun. So you've talked a lot about headcanon, and I think that is interesting because right now you now get the honor of your headcanon being canon. So I don't buy a lot of single issues because, again, I don't have space and I'm a collected editions YouTuber, but I did buy a couple of these bad boys. So what was it like getting to make your personal headcanon like the definitive canon? And was there anything that you wanted to include in your headcanon that just didn't fit in what you thought
Oh
was the
God, yes.
overarching?
There's so much, and I mean, let me start by saying that while the research largely begins with me, it is a collaborative effort
Yeah.
between myself and the editors, Anna Marino, Marquise Draper, Brittany Holzer, uh, all of the decisions that we make. Basically, I basically said, well, for instance, with the first issue, I sat down and I wrote a timeline that was something like 45 pages long
Wow.
before we did anything.
Yeah.
And then from there, we all got together and said, okay, we think this happened, or this didn't happen, or maybe this changed, or maybe this is the version we want to go with. Every single, I will say, not everyone's going to agree with every choice we made, but I promise you that every choice made in terms of having to determine what is continuity and what is not was not made capriciously. Every one of those decisions came at the end of a big screaming match between the four of us.
Yeah.
A friendly, well-meaning, and we all love this stuff, but a very passionate. We're all passionate about this history, so it's. I fought some things. I fought for some things that I lost. I fought for some things that I won. They fought for some things they lost. But overall, everything went through the microscope. So
Yeah.
it's a responsibility that we took very seriously, and it's still ongoing. I mean, I am currently, as of this evening,
Mhm.
finishing up the timeline for issue three. And oh my God, so much stuff happens between Crisis and Final Crisis. I can't even begin to say. But
Yeah.
yeah, the way the issues are put together is that we do the timeline first before I
Mhm.
do the upfront section with the illustrated pages, because that way I make sure I don't accidentally overlook something or leave something out. So we do the timeline first, and then I go through and pick out 30 pages worth of, I think, the most important moments or the most visual moments, or that the stuff that is well served by having the art up front. But that back matter with 15 pages or so of just text timeline, I think is just as important as the upfront illustrated art
Yeah.
or illustrated history. Yeah.
I will say, as I'm a much more recent reader.
Hmm.
My first comic ever when I was in high school. I bought Final Crisis as my first book, which was not the right book that should be your
Wow.
first
Yeah, you
book, you know,
you
but
jumped on the
I like to
pinnacle. Yeah.
say, yeah, I didn't, it was, the cover was so cool. It was like,
Yeah.
it looked like a dead Batman on the cover, you know, and I was
Yeah.
like, I got to read that. But I didn't know enough to not know what I didn't know. So I just enjoyed it, you know.
That's great. Yeah.
I started reading weekly issues when Rebirth came out. So reading your first issue of DC, A New History of DC Universe, I've never seen more characters I've never seen of before. Like I've never heard of.
That's great.
I was like, don't know who that is. Don't know who that is. And I'm like, and I loved it because even though I feel like I've helped shepherd a lot of people to comics now, there's still so much I don't know, and it's so great to that maybe one of those characters is one I'll fall in love with someday, you know, which is so
That's
cool.
that's a big part of it. Is it's as Dave Wheelgauss puts it, the guy who's helping me do the research on this, uh, as he puts it, and I like this, we won't be able to fit everyone in because DC's published something like 130,000 comic books over the last 90 years. So we can't fit every character in, but we're trying to put in as many as we can because it is our way of honoring the contributions of the 90 years of artists and writers who have come before us.
Yeah. Can I hit you with my favorite obscure DC character, and you can wink
Please.
once if he's in it?
Yeah.
Do we get any Gaggy in it? I don't know why. I've
Oh,
always loved the character of Gaggy.
oh, I love Gaggy. I really love Gaggy. Paul Dini and I had a good conversation about him on a panel once. I don't, sadly, I'm afraid Gaggy may not make the cut inside, but there's every chance, and I can't swear to it, there's every chance he could be on one of those covers for issue 2 because you've seen the insane jam cover, right? You've seen the covers with 500 characters on them, yes?
Yeah. Yeah, I,
Yeah.
I actually what was really cool is I just went to Heroes Con and I got to see Mike had his art book for some of his pages for his upcoming issue,
Cool.
and
Yeah.
I got to see some of that stuff, and I was nowhere even in the stratosphere of what my price range is to buy things, but I got to enjoy looking at them,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, but Scott Kovish is doing connected covers for all four, wraparound covers, and on those four covers there are 1,440 characters.
Wow.
And even I am hard pressed to know who some of them are. Scott does his own research, but I would be surprised if Gaggy. I want to remember that Gaggy is in there somewhere.
Gaggy for the win.
Gaggy
It's
for the
just
win.
it just became a joke. Like it's to me, he's just such a fun sidekick that like I feel like
Yeah,
I've only got to see people tease him in their modern interpretation of him, but like I just love that character unapologetically. Like that's that's fun
yeah.
for me. So my next question then is you've gotten to write some stories like Kingdom Come that are your own personal with you and Alex,
Mhm.
your own personal future what if. You've gotten to write things like World's Finest, which is almost like I would call it like pre-continuity, where it's almost like a
Yeah.
little nostalgia based. You've written some things that are like purely in the here and now. What's
Mhm.
more fun for you? Do you ever find like is continuity fun, or can it be like something that shackles you in your
Ah,
writing?
it can be both. I like writing it when it's like the Justice League Unlimited stuff we're doing now, where it is the
Mhm.
nexus of the DC universe in terms of its continuity. That's fun. That's fun to wrangle and it's fun to surf. But there's also a lot to be said with being able to write something that is sort of siloed in its own corner, so that no one except that idiot Mark Waid is gonna pull World's Finest into a big giant line wide crossover or something like that. Who would do something
Yeah.
that foolish? And yet here we did. But that's it. But that worked because I was writing both Justice League and World's Finest. We were able to cross those books together. But overall, yeah, I like having a nice mix. Here's some of my assignments that are set in the here and now in the current DC universe, and here's stuff that's set either in the future or in the past that is a little siloed off, and that way I get to do a sort of an unbroken run and not have to worry about how current continuity is affecting that. And the genesis of World's Finest and Batman and Superman World's Finest was not that I came to them and said, I want to write out of continuity Batman and Superman. That was an
Mhm.
editorial edict. They came to me and said, we want a Superman and Batman book that is in classic continuity so that you don't have to worry about if I had written World's Finest in current continuity when I did it, when we started a few years ago. At that point, Superman was on War World and Batman didn't have any money and had no Batcave. And there was, if you have to start thinking about those things, then it becomes a mess. So
Yeah.
World's Finest being able to be set a few years in the past and siloed in a way where then I can just play with that continuity and yet make sure that there are things in every arc that spill over into current continuity.
Yeah.
So you can make it clear that it's not an alternate universe or anything like that. It really is connected to the current DC universe. That's fun to me. I mean, I don't have to worry about what's happening in other people's books in everything I do if I'm writing something like World's Finest.
Yeah. I World's Finest to me was one of the most refreshing things. Like when I read the first
Thank you.
standard size hardcover, to me it was just like I didn't have to do encyclopedia reading,
Right.
to enjoy it. And then sometimes things would spill over. Like there was that event, like I think Lazarus, where things spilled
Leisure,
over
yeah.
to more
Mhm.
modern. And then I know now your current. I stopped reading because I stopped collecting the standard size hardcovers. I think when Dan Mora left,
Mhm.
just because everything's going to be an omni and I'm running out of space. I live in
Right. Totally get
California,
that.
so I have limited. I mean, as you can see, I double stack my calyxes, so
Oh
I'm
yeah,
running
by
out of.
now, look, trust me, everything that comes in this house right now is a matter of will it fit? It's not
Mhm.
can I afford it? It's not
Yes,
do I
me
want it? It's
either.
where will I put it? If I can't figure out where to put it, then I keep it. I don't know about you, but by the way, here's my rule. I don't know if this is helpful to you
Okay.
or not.
I want
My
to. I want to
rule,
learn.
my rule is I can keep buying new books, but I refuse to buy new bookcases.
Oh,
So it makes me that's hard choices then, everyone in, something's got to go out, something like that.
yeah.
So and
I
it
yeah.
helps.
I'm different because so much of my job is content creation. So I
Hmm.
get most new releases to make content on for social media. And then it's what do I keep and what do I have to let go?
Right.
So it's not
Right.
about, again, it's not about the money, but it's also like, I have limit space is my biggest currency.
Oh yeah, I tell you, it's, again, same here. You wouldn't, and again, you live in California. I live in California. Rents are insane. You get
Yep.
it. Yes.
I actually think I just bought your biggest physical book today.
Which
Which
is
the artist edition of Black Widow.
yeah, that's
That
probably the
has to be. That's
physical.
probably
Yes.
that's such a random thing to say, right? Like I'm over here complaining about space. I'm like, I don't have that one. Let me buy the
Yeah.
biggest physical book with your name on
Right.
it.
What is the heaviest Mark Waid book I can get? Yes, that's it.
Yeah. But that one looks awesome. I haven't read it yet, but that art looks awesome. I'm a lot
Oh,
more
it's
of a DC fan. But I
oh,
do
but
love. Yeah,
Chris. Yeah,
yeah.
Chris Somney. Come on. Yeah.
So that's a good segue. We'll play a fun game that I like to do on interviews called Explain That Panel, where I've pulled some panels from both your
Sure.
current work and some of your older stuff. If it's current stuff, it's not going to be a spoiler, but if you can just give me a little behind the scenes or a little
Yeah.
context, a little story, these are some of my favorite panels. This one being one of the most recent. This was such an awesome concept. Superman
Thank you.
not realizing. I was torn between this and the one of him imagining throwing the guy in the volcano. Those are like those were the two. But like, what about what made you want to go with this?
This was, I mean, writing Superboy, writing the adventures of Superman as a young boy, as a 15-year-old in Action Comics, which is now what Action Comics is for the
Mhm.
foreseeable future, is a treat because it gives me a chance to write a Superman who is still learning,
Yeah,
a Superman who is going through all the hormonal stuff of teenagehood and is, trying to juggle that as well as just trying to figure out what Superboy is. He's having to basically do this on the fly. And so he's in this scene.
literally.
Yes, in this scene, he's found his first new supervillain. He's up against this guy, and he goes in and he's going to go take a swing, and then he realizes he's never thrown a punch before. He has
Yeah,
no idea how hard he can hit this guy without killing him.
yeah.
And
This yeah.
so
Th-
he
This moment sold
blinks.
me on the book instantly. Like I
Thank
was,
you.
I don't think Superboy for me has always been other characters since I've been
Right.
more of a modern reader. So
Right.
I did watch some stuff like Superman the animated series or the
Hmm.
Legion of superhero TV show where Clark is a younger character. But this
Hmm.
is the first time I've really read him as Superboy, and I loved it.
Yeah,
Um,
this is not short Superman. This is actually Superboy. Yeah, yeah.
yep. So we'll go to the next one. Oh, here we go. This one was just a wild page. I Last Days of Lex Luthor. I hope a lot of people discover it now that it's collected because they're not waiting 7 months in between issues
Right.
or something. It was I read it this week. I loved it, man.
Thank you. I mean, look, all props to Brian Hitch. I mean,
Yeah.
Brian Hitch and Kevin Nolan made this thing sing. And This actually, that one shot is indicative of my thinking of the whole thing. The whole project was, how can I do a travelogue throughout the Superman universe where we get to visit all of the things and all the places that make his world unique? Is it the Bottle City of Candor? Is it, the undersea world of Atlantis? This is the 31st century of the Legion of Superheroes and so forth. And so this is just, a beautiful panorama of, here are some other places that Superman went in the DC universe looking for a cure for Lex.
And just because I know we're at the 25-minute mark, everyone comment down below #Kingdom, and we'll do a giveaway for an absolute edition of Kingdom Come, courtesy
Love it.
of Our Place Organic Price Books. So I was torn between this one, and then I like the panel of when they're flying together for the first time. It's almost like the art, like the Starry Night, but this one just had so much story in one page,
That it really did. And that's all, I mean, that's Brian. I gave Brian the suggestions, but Brian's the one who really brought that to life.
So someone asking, are we getting a discussion on the new Superman movie? We can talk about it. Have you talked about a review of your opinion of that movie yet so far?
Not very much. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I was really pleasantly surprised. We don't want to make otherwise I could go on for like an hour. So let's not do that. Let me just give you my brief review, which is to say, I really liked it. They nailed Superman beautifully. I thought Corn Sweat was terrific. I thought the whole cast was terrific. And and I love the fact that my name is a street sign, not once but twice in the movie. That was exciting.
Did they send you with the street sign? Like, did they send it to you?
No, I mean,
that would have been cool.
I know. I'll make a call. I'll see what.
Okay.
So, but I will say that the thing that I think I probably enjoyed most about the movie in general is that what made it feel fresh and unique to me was that in almost all superhero movies, certainly in the last 20 years or so, the superhero is the fanciful element, and then it's brought into our grounded world, right? Basically, that's the way it works. Or the superhero and the supervillain may be the fantastical elements, but everything else is deliberately set in a familiar world like ours. Whereas this movie, Superman the movie, is Superman the 2025 movie, we just go right into his world.
Yeah.
Just unapologetically, completely in a world with flying dogs and fortresses and, you name it. And at no time do they act sheepish or apologetic about the Superman mythos. They just lean into it 100%. And we do too, as the audience.
It was, for me, getting to sit back and look at the audience watch, because I've seen it twice now, but seeing the audience react to it, and like my wife, who's not a comic book fan, actually one of the few comics she has read and loves is your Archie run.
Thank her.
Which I'm sad that it seems like we're not going to get another Varsity Deluxe edition. I'll look into
that. I'll make some calls. Yeah.
Okay, because that, like, to get my wife to read a comic was a bucket list thing for me. But her best friend texted her, who was never liked Superman before, and goes, "Oh my god, the movie was amazing. He was so cool." Like, just seeing people who I know haven't really cared about Superman before get to react to it and really enjoy it, for me, was good. And I just love that, like, getting to see it. Like, previous DC movies, for me, I felt stressed because I was like, let me find the moments I like in these movies, because I'm not going to like the whole movie. Let me find the moments that I can enjoy. But this one was the first time I was just like, wow. I truly, like, I almost like was a little stressed at first, because like the pressure of, like, I was like, is this finally going to be one I can love? And then to watch it,
I can imagine my pressure going in, thinking, oh my god, this movie had better be great, because if it's not, I'm going to feel so depressed. And instead, they hit it out of the park. Do we have quibbles? Everybody's got quibbles, but on the whole, the week that has gone by since I've seen it, whatever few quibbles I have sort of faded into the background, and I am just taken by the vibrancy of this movie, and, as I say, the unapologetic comic bookness of it that the audience just ate up.
Did you feel like, I definitely saw moments or things or themes that felt like they pulled from Birthright, and then also things that felt like they pulled from Birthright but flipped it on its head? Like, not to go into spoilers, but I felt like the message with his parents felt like the opposite of Birthright. But to me, I'm curious if you had thoughts about that. But to me, I felt like that was necessary to show that he's choosing to be a hero, not because he was told to be, but because it was his choice.
Right. I'm still having a rough time swallowing that as headcanon, but I'm sure I will at some
Yes.
point. But that said, I did recognize the birthrightness of, we're going to take a message,
Yeah.
from Krypton, and we're going to use it against Superman to turn the world against him. So well, I'll make some calls to some DC people and make sure they know this.
Yeah. At the very least, you deserve your street sign. Let's do
Yeah,
our first giveaway right now. And we'll hit some comments while we're doing it, give people a last chance to enter. So do
yeah, sure.
hashtag kingdom. We'll hit some of these comments. Zach, hey man, thanks for talking to one of my favorite creators. It's awesome oh, I thought you meant Mark was your favorite creator. It's awesome to see their channel grow and be able to watch one of the best creators. That's you. Talk to one of the best writer. Oh, I'm best writer. Okay, good. People saying hashtag kingdom. Have you ever received an assignment that you were not 100% excited with, but ended up falling in love with?
Yes, Fantastic Four. I was not a huge fan of Fantastic Four growing up. I liked the rest of the Marvel Universe, but there was just something about it that didn't click for me. I think because I started reading Fantastic Four at a pretty creatively shallow era. But when Tom Brevoort, the editor, asked me to take on the book, and it was with Michael Ringo, who was my artist on Flash, who could draw anything, and I would follow Mike doing anything. I had to really think about it, and I had to really explore what it is I could find in there to love.
Mm-hmm.
And son of a bitch, if I didn't end up doing 2 or 3 issues and going, I really like this team. I really like this concept. So that was the one.
I've read the first few arcs of that one. As again, I'm more of a DC fan, but the concept of like, was they hired a PR person or like, and it was so to see that perspective of the team from like, how do we, was it like they hired a PR person or a marketing person? Like was so funny to me.
Yeah,
From
the
the
idea was
beginning.
that the idea was that it's every once in a while they need to remind people that they exist, and
Yeah.
it is like the punch at the end of that first issue is the reality that
Yep.
as Mr. Fantastic is speaking to his infant daughter, thinking, with the idea that he's got to say something to somebody and he doesn't want to say this out loud to anybody else, but he confesses the truth behind it all, which is that
Yep.
the reason he calls himself Mr. Fantastic and they're called the Fantastic Four and they wear these bright, colorful costumes and they get to be celebrities is because he did that deliberately.
Yeah.
Because,
And that, yeah, it was a
yeah,
gut
because
punch.
yeah, because otherwise, basically there's a way of looking at that in which I took my best friends up on a rocket ship and I destroyed their lives.
Yeah.
I made them freaks, and I've made them hunted, and they will be having no normal life forever. And so what do I do to flip the script on that but turn them into celebrities? And that is that's his penance. So that feels like something that came together really nicely.
Okay, we got 19 people. Let's draw our first one. So what we'll do is if you win, comment down below in the video. Actually, everyone can comment down below after the video goes live for the algorithm, but comment down below and I'll reach out to you. It'll be completely free to the continental United States. So we got you. Let's see who wins. No whammies,
Spin
no
that wheel, spin
whammies.
that wheel. No whammies. Okay.
Caesar Donnie, you just
Ah,
won an absolute Kingdom Come courtesy of me and the other fine folks at Organic Price Books.
congratulations, Caesar.
It's awesome. Speaking of that, one of my favorite panels, and I know that there's an interesting moment with this specific panel to it. I've heard you talk about this before. Let me go to present, share screen. Any behind the scene context to this specific panel from Kingdom Come?
Yeah, I actually have this page on my wall at home.
Wow.
It's when Alex came to DC with the basic notion of Kingdom Come, which was Superman retires, younger heroes come out of retirement, they're not trained, everything goes badly. We sat down and we tried to come up with a story around that. And in our first meeting with DC editorial, it was a couple of DC editors and Alex and I never met before. And we're sitting there and we're talking about the story, and he's talking about what he wants to accomplish. And I'm not getting a handle on it yet. Like I get what he's going, but I don't find the wow moment for me yet. I haven't found like the personal moment for
Mhm.
me that surprises me. And it suddenly came to me, that image of Clark putting his glasses back on for the first time in all these years and becoming Clark Kent again after being Superman for so long and being an exiled Superman for so long. Suddenly, I felt like, oh, okay, I get it. I see what the story is about.
Yeah.
And so that's the context of that whole page.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. Do you feel, I guess it's probably hard. So how do I word this? You've revisited Kingdom Come a couple times with there's the deluxe edition of, I think it's like the Kingdom, and then
Mhm.
recently with World's Finest you got to kind of make like a prequel, and I know that Alex has had his take on like a sequel to it. What's it like to revisit something that's so iconic, and like what makes you want to keep revisiting it in different
Nah,
ways?
I think I'm done revisiting it, to tell you the truth.
Okay, so
I
it's
was
done. Yeah,
Well, I mean, anything. If I can have a great idea tomorrow, who knows? But
yeah,
I was hesitant to revisit it with World's Finest,
yeah.
but the only reason I was willing to do that is because it wasn't a sequel. It was going to be a prequel to Kingdom Come in that book, because it spun off of an event in issue 7 of World's Finest that is a story I've been holding on to for 20 years. The idea of Boy Thunder becoming Superman's sidekick, and where did that
Mhm.
character come from, and what is his origins, and all of that was a bullet I've had in the chamber since like 1997.
Yeah,
So I I was willing to pull that trigger, but as I say, I wouldn't want to do anything that would be perceived as a sequel to Kingdom Come, because if you're doing
yeah,
it without me or without Alex together, it doesn't feel right.
yeah. I would say that speaking as someone who is in the collected editions world as much as I am, that is on most people's list of like one of the most wanted DC omnis, especially for recent ones. People are clamoring for a World's Finest omnibus. So,
I I
um,
I I I have a good feeling about that. I can't. I have no
yeah,
deep inside information, but I would not be surprised if there wasn't an Omni at some point sooner than later.
yeah. Since we're at about the 36-minute mark, we'll switch over to Marvel for a second. This
Sure.
is one of my favorite panels. Daredevil is my favorite Marvel character.
Cool.
And this panel to me is just one of the funniest, best things I'd ever seen. I love that you get like Matt's attitude in this situation, but also you get to see his senses. And like, I loved this page.
Thank you. I have been not shy about saying this is editor Steve Wacker's joke, not my joke. God damn it. I wish it were
Okay.
my joke, but it was Steve's, and it was a great
Well,
joke.
can I interview him instead now? I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
exactly. Please, you need to be talking to him. Um, Steve was a great editor to work with, and Paulo Rivera was such a great artist to be paired with. That's the one we won the Eisner for, that
Mhm.
issue, and the Harvey Award, because Paulo is just so good. But writing Daredevil was so much fun for me, because it really forced me every moment of every day to think, okay, if I had radar senses, if I had accelerated senses like Matt's, how would I perceive this moment that I am in? Whether I'm at the
Yeah.
grocery store or at the rodeo or wherever I am, what am I seeing? What am I feeling? What am I perceiving? And so
That was one
that's
of
something
yeah.
that went into every single issue I wrote.
I think it's early on when they're crossing the street and it's a double page spread,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
just see like I felt like no other writer that I had read at the time captured, like I got to see, I got to experience the world as Daredevil did. And I think, I don't even remember, but when I met you at WonderCon, I told you I felt like, from what I know in the collected editions world and from reviews I've heard, that I feel like your Daredevil run is actually pretty misunderstood. I've heard some
Oh
people,
yeah.
and I guess if you could tell someone that goes, "Oh, I don't want to see Daredevil be happy." First off, he's
Right.
not happy.
He's
Denial's a
he's
different thing.
exactly, he's not even remotely happy. The same
No,
amount
and you
of
you wreck
horrible
his life.
the same amount of horrible things happen to Matt in our run as in every other Daredevil run. The only difference is in how Matt reacts to it. That is the only difference. And it's
Yeah,
because he is currently, as we say in issue 1, he's hit rock bottom and he keeps digging. So
yeah.
he's tired of digging. An idiot just keeps doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. So Matt is now in a fake it till you make it mindset of, otherwise the depression will just completely consume me, and it does at some point later on in the
Yeah.
run. It's a dark book. I
Dude,
think that
the stuff with like
people,
him and Foggy together. Oh my
yeah,
God. Like, so whenever people were like, cause it's my favorite Daredevil
thank
run,
you.
and I absolutely love it. It was just like I didn't get it when people, because I was like, I'd heard that before and I was reading, I was like, I don't think he's happy. I don't think this is
No,
happy-go-lucky. Like
people
maybe
are
it
just,
was the
yeah,
art style with the denial. I don't know, but like the scenes of him in the hospital with Foggy, like, and he's like, oh my
he
God,
didn't
that
write
stuff
it
wrecked
like
me.
that.
It tackled like the stuff with the what was the like there was issues of like systematic like racism in it, which wasn't a light issue. There was all these
Right.
things, and
Yes.
I also feel like you like okay, this is kind of what I took from it briefly.
Yeah.
I feel like Matt has always wondered if he didn't have to be two people, would he do better and would he be happy? And you let him be this hybrid where he gets to be out in the open when he changes his outfit and he gets to experience what life would be like if he didn't have two different lives. And I
Right.
feel like it's like whenever you think something external, if you can just achieve that dream or just achieve that, it'll make you happy. It
And it
never
never
does.
does.
Because
Never
then you
does.
get that. And that to me was so cool because you gave him what I feel like he always thought he wanted, and he
Hmm.
wasn't any happier. And
And then proved him that
yeah,
that's not what you need. Exactly. Thank you
yeah.
for understanding. There's so many people. I think you're right. I think it is the art style, and the art's brilliant. But I think
I mean,
maybe it's just the fact that it's not a million scratchy lines and, dark shadows on every single panel. And I just went into the job saying, look, if you want me to do Frank Miller, I can't do Frank. No one can. Why would I want to try to do what Frank did? Because the best I can hope for is to be a second hand Frank, right? The
yeah.
best I can hope to be is almost as good as Frank Miller. Well, I would rather be the best Mark Waid I can be than the second best Frank Miller.
Yeah.
And look, we won a ton of awards. I'm so grateful for. I work with Chris, I work with Paulo, I work with Marcus Martina, I work with some really great artists. Steve was always a joy to work with, and I am so pleased with what we did there. And I'm hoping that people still remember that book 10, 15, 20 years from now.
It's one of my absolute favorite. Let's try to
Thank you.
hit one or two left. This right here is just like if this is what would be like Dick Grayson is my favorite character in all of comics. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Gaggy, but Dick Grayson to the
Nah,
point where I named my cat Grayson because my wife didn't allow me to name our cat Dick. But
fair enough.
the relationship between Robin and Batman,
Yeah.
and this is like my dream book, man.
It's Chris Samnee's dream book too, and that is why you feel that joy.
Yeah,
I'm having a great time and I'm really enjoying it. I love these characters, but Chris loves Batman and Robin, and in the same way I love Superman. And
yeah.
so that joy is right there. And that one page, I know that Chris didn't get any Eisner or Harvey Award nominations last year for his work on this book is a crime.
Yeah. It is, I guess. Can I ask really fast, how many DC books are you concurrently writing? It's got to be a
Ah,
ton, man. Because
it's a ton.
I was trying to count, and I was like, he's writing that Justice League, yeah, so many, man, and they're all so different. Like they connect, they're separate, they're different continuities. Some's headcanon. You're writing a ton, man. You're the Hamilton of the DC
There's a
world right
lot going
now.
on. There's Justice League Unlimited, there's World's Finest, there is Action Comics, there is History, which I'm three-quarters of the way done, and there's Batman and Robin Year One. And when that's over with, I I'm I cannot imagine there will not be room for Chris and I to do another Batman and Robin book. So that's 5 books, man. I need to find some way to slow down.
Yeah. I will say the reason I was so excited about your Justice League run
Mhm.
is I'm not someone who started reading comics at an early age. My family's only cable channel was Boomerang, so I grew up on the Super Friends, thinking that was a
Right,
modern think that was a
right.
modern show, and then out of nowhere, Batman the Bruce Timmverse came at me, and Justice
Mhm.
League Unlimited is like to me what everything I is like what everything comes from. My love of DC and everything came from the fact that after that show was done, I was like, I can't lose that world. What else is out there? So to have
Yeah.
I mean, it's not in that continuity, obviously, but it has that name and basically stating this is everybody. Everybody's invited, you know.
Exactly. It's the same remit, which is that literally everyone in the DC universe who wants to be a Justice League member is a Justice League member. And
Yeah,
so the bench that gives us to draw from allows me to, in every issue, basically the process is, in every issue I want 3 or 4 of the A-list guys: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, one of the A-list guys. In every issue you want 1 or 2 of the B-listers: Martian Manhunter or Vixen or whoever, right?
yeah,
And then you want, in that, somewhere in there, the deep cut character, whether it is Airwave, whether it is Dr. Occult, whether it is Ultra the Multi-Alien. I want the deep cut character there too. So I literally keep spreadsheets
yeah.
and lists and so forth to make sure that I keep the membership balance pretty well. But then again, then we do this big giant We Are Yesterday crossover with this and World's Finest, and now we've broken up time, and so now we have just dozens and dozens of characters from all over time and space showing up in this book. I'm This is incredible. Look at Dan Moore. This is Dan Mora. This is Dan Moore, artist at his peak, just having a blast drawing these characters.
Probably like, I mean, the amount of output that person produces is
Oh, it's insane.
insane, and like they're doing so much stuff. I'm so excited for Transformers. That'll be so cool. But yeah, that is definitely like you guys as you guys are a power couple, but then like you and Chris on Batman and Robin.
Yep.
You have so many power couples. You have an embarrassment of riches. We'll hit. I guess I'll ask you one last question about this. We'll do one last
Yeah.
panel and then we can end it because I know you have a heart out. But was there
Sure.
any character that was everybody on the table, or was
Yes.
there anybody that was like, no, this one person's off the table?
No, literally everybody was on the table.
Is that
And
fun or
is
is that intimidating?
It's both. I mean, it's fun. There are always moments when an editor or an assistant editor or an artist will go, "I like this character too," and I'm looking at them going, "Yeah, okay, well, all right." As a I don't- you know I'm not the boss. I'll put this character in there too. But by and large, it's been a blast. Like you said, there's no pushback, and the edict with this book was just make it bigger, make it bigger, make it bigger, make it bigger. And so I'm just having a ball. And again, like you said, Dan Moore is a machine.
Let's because I love giving, let's do one more giveaway for another copy of Absolute Kingdom
Sure.
Come. Because why not, right? Share the
Yeah.
love. So we got
Spin the
25
wheel.
entries now. People entered after we did the last giveaway. So you can't,
Okay.
you got to give them a shot. So let's draw one more. Jesse Custer 3,
Custer.
congratulations.
Congratulations, preacher man. Nice going.
So I have one last panel that I would love to show off.
Sure.
This was for me because there wasn't a lot of characters that I knew that well of the first issue of New History. This was the one for me that made me giddy because it was more of a wink to, I think, more people that knew a more modern continuity. But I loved this was my favorite panel in the first issue.
Yeah.
I loved this. So was this ones that you wanted to include? Was this one that other people on the team wanted to include, or do you have any behind the scenes context of this panel?
This was me. We have mucked with the very, very original origins, pre-origins of the DC universe quite a bit in the last 20 years. And this was me sort of refining it down into the peak moments. I mean, you've got Perpetua and her children, and then you've got the Endless, and that's that's where it all begins. They're called the Endless. They're from the beginning. So
Yeah.
Jerry Ordway, by the way, just did this page, and just what a heavy hitter this man. I mean, Jerry can draw anything.
Yeah. This was awesome because I felt like a lot of the characters in the first issue, definitely a lot of them skewed older in terms of like when they originally came out, but to also have a wink, because these are the oldest characters, but they're the most recent, like at least Perpetua and them are way more recent. But it was so cool that like it was a love letter to all eras of comics.
Yes,
And
for all eras of
yeah.
comics. And the back matter gives you citations on all of this stuff. So there's nothing that you can see in that first, upfront 30 pages there's everything there is up for grabs in terms of you looking at something and going, I want to know more. Well, go to the back matter in the back and it'll tell you where to look.
So, lastly, I just found out yesterday I'm going to Comic-Con, which I did not think I'd be going to San Diego Comic-Con.
Congratulations.
Do you have anything fun going on there? Anything I should be on the lookout for when I go?
Yeah, every night at the DC booth, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 6 o'clock, they're doing a big game show. They did this last year. The Joker is Wild. It's basically a spin the wheel and the categories come up. And if you answer the right question, you get fabulous prizes. And it's open to everybody. And the wrinkle this year is that I'm your phone a friend.
Nice.
You spin the wheel, and if my picture comes up, as you're doing the Joker's Wild spinning, then that means that you get to choose me as your phone a friend, and I'm right there, Professor Waid. So that's going to be
awesome.
A lot of fun. 6 o'clock every night at the DC booth.
I will be there, man. Lastly, is there anything you would like to promote or plug? The floor is yours. If there's anything you want to tell our audience.
Wow. I mean, I don't know if there's anything left to plug. We talked about everything, but I do think that, in terms of just telling the audience, I'm grateful for the fans every day. I am incredibly lucky. I have, is it next? It's a week from Friday, I think, is the 40th anniversary to the day of my very first publication, my very first comics job in print. And that is a long ride.
Yeah.
And I would not be here if I didn't have fans who were still buying the books and still supporting me. And I am very grateful for that every day. I never take that for granted.
That's awesome, man. You knew that Superman saved your life. You knew you were going to do something with him, and you're still getting to write that character to this day. Yeah. It's amazing that you've written two of the most definitive stories of all times in different parts of the character's life. Now you're writing him as Superboy. So it's got to be amazing that you still have more in your heart to say about your character.
About Superman. Yeah, I can't imagine a day in which I've run out of things to say about Superman.
I will say that one of the highlights of my life was, I don't even remember, but in your panel with Dan Slott, you called on me to get to answer why I think the character of Superman was important, and you liked my answer. So yes. that was an honor to me that I got to tell you that, because I love the character and I want to do what I can to get more readers for him.
Well, don't leave the audience in suspense. Reprise your answer.
Okay. So what's cool about Superman is people might think, he's so powerful that maybe he's boring, but the benefit of that is you can write the stakes of the story as bombastic, as crazy as the dimension of the world ending or him saving a cat out of a tree. And he doesn't solve them with his powers, as powerful as they are, but with his humanity and his goodness. He has all these crazy powers, but he is authentically human, and it's his humanity and goodness that saves the day. So I think that is what makes him so special. What makes him so important is that, I get so tired of the what if Superman was evil, and I'm not critiquing Irredeemable. That's also awesome. I know that was good for you,
and I don't take it that way. I don't take it that
way
because, again, if for those who haven't read Irredeemable, it's not, the first 4 issues is what if Superman was evil, and 33 issues after.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say is that I live in a world where if Superman did exist, he'd probably be evil. I'd rather read about a character that has his powers and he'd be good. You know what I mean? And that to me is so special. So just so you know, you have written multiple, whether it's Kingdom Come or Birthright, people's favorite Superman story. I know you like to say, oh, it's All-Star, or but you have written a lot of people's favorite Superman story, and that has to be an amazing feeling for someone
that is a huge honor. I'll never top All-Star Superman, but that's okay. I can live with that. So I can live with being the Salieri to his Mozart for the rest of my life. That's okay.
I did quote that in my Superman video last week.
Yes. There you go. Well, again, this has been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
It was a pleasure. Everyone, keep reading and stay brave. That's my catchphrase.
Excellent.
Deep within a bleak and dismal swamp, hidden beneath its murky waters, lies the headquarters of the most sinister villains of all time.